is Dr. Lisabeth Medlock from Life by Design Coaching with your life coaching tip of the week for the week of September 17th, 2012. Happy Monday! Today I'm going to talk about the topic of choosing your words carefully. Something that's come up for me a couple times recently when I've talked to my clients or been in situations where I felt like, gee, words could have been chosen more carefully. You really have to be careful about the words you choose because you can't take them back, and how sometimes in the moment we say things we really don't mean. We say things that are mean-spirited. We say things that are coming from an emotional place before we process them, and then we wonder why people are angry at us, people are upset with us, because you can't really take those words back, and they usually come from a place of beyond anger to a place of just fear, a place of defensiveness. But I think what I want to really focus on is the fact that choosing your words carefully really means that when you have an emotion in the moment, especially if it's a heated emotion and reaction out of fear or anger, or if somebody's really touched a nerve, so to speak, that you take a second, and I always preach this, to really step back from yourself before the words come tumbling out of your mouth, because you can never take back those words. And a lot of times, if you were to replay that transcript, someone made a transcript of a conversation you had, or I see this all the time, of an email that you wrote, you would be horrified later at the things that you said and the amount of emotion that they had, and the amount of sometimes fear and anger and vitriol that they have in them, that later on, when you really think about the situation, you wouldn't have put it quite that way. And so what you have to do is really be careful in those moments to take a breath, step away mentally, step away physically, just like they say in conflict resolution. When you get into an argument with someone, take a breath and step away from the conflict. So whenever you feel your buttons pushed, so to speak, or you may say something that you're going to regret later, do that. Have that filter, but that sometimes means removing yourself in your mind or removing yourself physically from the situation and not saying those things, and just saying, taking a pause, taking a breath and saying, I'm not going to respond to that now, but I'm going to think about that and talk to you about it later. So have a mantra. I kind of have a mantra that I say when a lot of other things become spewing out of my mouth, which is, that's great. And that's great really means a lot of other things, but I always say something like, that's great, or I'm really going to think about that, or, I'm going to get back to you about that later. And that's my mantra that I always put in the place of going to an angry place, calling people's names, and or cussing them out. So if you have a phrase or a mantra that you can say in that moment, that that it means something, but it also gives you space to reflect on it so that you're not spewing out words at the moment. You should do the same thing with emails. As many of you know that read my blog, I don't know if I've said it here, I've gotten some horrifically vicious emails from a particular person that are astoundingly vicious in tone and language. And I'm thinking, how could someone write these emails and not read them? But I've heard in other situations, and I've had this happen, where you write a letter, or a lot of times we write a text or we write an email now, in the moment that we're feeling this overwhelming emotion, and we don't edit it, and we send it off, click, and then later on we read the email and we think to ourselves, what in the heck was I saying? Why did I do that? And there's no way when we hit that click or we hit that send to take that back. And words can really hurt people. I think the sticks and stones might break my bones, but words will never hurt me is a bunch of crap. Words do hurt, they do sting, and we have to be careful with them. So here's what I always say. Spew it out to yourself. Keep it to yourself. So in that moment, step back from it. In that moment where you want to write that email, write the email, or write it in Word or another word processing program. Keep it overnight, get up in the morning, and look at the email. Look at what you wrote, and I bet you're going to edit the heck out of that thing, and you won't feel the same way. Have somebody else look at your stuff. What you guys probably don't know, or some of you do, is that when I was writing my blog, there were a few blogs that I put up that I took down immediately, because I had a friend looking at my blogs, and she would call me and say, you really need to reread that blog, because I was writing in a place where I felt too much emotion. I hadn't stepped away from it, and I put some things in my blog I probably shouldn't have a couple times. Now, I caught those, she caught those for me, and I actually took down some of my blogs, and some of them were completely rewritten. Now, somebody probably read them in the first 1 or 2 hours they were up, but eventually they were caught because I had someone monitoring me, which is another thing you can do. When you have something to say, when you feel hurt, anger, you have words to say to someone has really upset you, have someone edit you. If you're going to write an email, show it to 2 of your close friends and say, what do you think about this email? And most likely they'll say, this is a little harsh. Do you really want to say that? You might want to sleep on that. So if other people edit you or write it, spill it out. It needs to come out some way. Now what I'll do is I'll write stuff down. I'll just write to be writing, and then I'll look at it later, and then I may say 2 sentences to the person, but I wrote a page of stuff that I really wanted to say. And once I've said it in some fashion and kept it to myself, or put it on paper, or had a friend, a close confidant and friend, look at it, then I've said those words and I don't need to say them directly to that person, and I can say them in another form. So choose your words carefully, choose your conversations carefully, because words do hurt. You will regret some of the things you say. We all have done it, and you can't actually take them back. And also think about that it's most of the time takes about 5 times as much energy and time to repair the wounds and the damage that gets done from words than it did to say the words. And we spew the words in the moment, and sometimes it takes days, weeks, and months to heal from what we've said from those words. So don't do it. I think that's my advice. Try not to do it. Censor yourself. Choose your words carefully. Your words are really, what's coming out of your mouth is your truth. It's the representation of yourself, and it's the representation of your soul. So be very careful with your words. And I don't think words should hurt or harm. Words should heal. That doesn't mean that you can't be assertive and you can't be honest, but just choose your words carefully. That is your video coaching tip for the week, and I hope you will have a great week and join me next week. Bye.